purpose of this video is to discuss a method by which intruders, whether they were human or potentially unknown entities, could be flushed from their hiding spots effectively, and also directed. In other words, you could move the target in a direction that you desire, and then also create a bottleneck for isolation and confinement, and potentially offer a great improvement in self-defense capabilities. This is Donald Adams, known as Doc Stars. It's a nickname that members of our Sound of Stars frequency group gave me a number of years ago. This video is, I'm producing this video with the idea of supporting Fantastic Daily and Freya in their efforts in targeting, profiling, and extracting information from their subject of the black-eyed children. The content of this video should be repurposed, or it can be repurposed for different kinds of paranormal investigations as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the idea. I'm going to discuss some of the benefits of this, some of the inherent challenges, and then just sort of describe, parts of the tactical operation as well as strategies, and then discuss some of the technical aspects of it. One thing I want to just say off the bat is I see this as being enormously beneficial for Fantastic Daily's efforts, and really potentially for any kind of paranormal investigation. I'm not suggesting that it be implemented immediately. It's something that I think is really worth thinking about, considering, but allow yourself time. One of the things that would be involved here would be costs. This is not an inexpensive project. In past videos, I've tried to give suggestions that I thought were a really good addressment insofar as keeping the budget down. This project would cost a little bit of cash, and whether it's Fantastic Daily or any other investigation group, it might serve well at some point after this has been examined, and if the benefits seem warranted for your project, maybe a consideration could be establish something like an Indiegogo fund or some kind of online funding group to raise the funds, because the equipment would have to be purchased. So as many viewers may be aware, I've developed frequencies that have been field tested over a number of years, or highly effective at dispersing especially hostile negative entities. Paranormal investigators in field that have used these have reported successes over and over again. One thing I wanted to mention, in the past video I said that we've had to date 100% success rate. There hasn't been any reports that have come in where what we were hoping for wasn't attained. But there has been a single situation. I wanted to mention this because I think this is important. There has been one instance of someone who did not have success with the frequencies, but the problem came not from the resultant of the frequencies being played, but rather in a failure to deploy. And I'm not going to mention who this individual is, but the problem that she had, she was in a very haunted home with a lot of, like a great historical, a lot of historical accounts of disturbing paranormal activity. And what she had done is she had attempted to play the tracks. And my understanding is that she attempted to set it up to play at a certain time, then she went away. It was on a cell phone or something. And she had left the space, and when she had come back, she found that the equipment including her cell phone, had been destroyed. This was on a farm home in a very isolated rural area. My understanding was no one else would have had access to the residence. So if something problematic may occur, it's not likely to occur from the result of the frequency emission, but rather, if the operator fails to deploy the frequencies due to a mechanical failure or circumstances that inhibit playing the frequencies, then a problem may arise. And that's something just to keep in mind, especially if you're going to be going into like a hotspot. And I can address that issue in more detail, perhaps at a later date or upon request. So, just jumping into the idea. In the case of Fantastic Daily, having watched recent videos, the goal is to make possibly nighttime visits into potential hotspots. And the rationale and the idea and the strategy that Fantastic Daily has presented, I think makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's using a really intelligent, low-tech solution of the UV dust. That's just smart. Granted, there's obviously a potential apparent danger of making an incursion into a potentially hostile area. So I would just encourage everyone to support him in those efforts, and let's wish him the greatest safety as he ventures out into that. But having watched some of the videos, specifically of Fantastic Daily, one scenario that seems to pop up is when it's late at night, there is the perception of someone or something possibly being in proximity, but not knowing where they are. And in some of the photos, it shows an individual, which looks like a female individual, that's hiding in the bushes. And when FD, Fantastic Daily, got out of the car on the road late at night, by his accounts, when he had gotten out, he didn't see this individual, which makes sense. It would be very difficult, to see at dark, with, unless a person had night vision goggles or something. And the average person or the average investigator doesn't always, have that on hand. He did pick it up on his cell phone when he was, scanning the area. So, in situations like this, this is where the suggestion, I believe, would come in very handy. So, going back to the dispel darkness frequencies that I've designed, usually what happens is I would encourage people to research the topic of kymatics, because one fellow made a device called the Kymoscope, which is based on Ernst Chladni and Hans Jetty's early work into kymatics. And John Reed has some excellent lectures just on the nature of sound, how it propagates, etc. The basic idea is that when sound is emitted, it travels as a spheroid. So you have essentially a bubble-like canopy that's formed, especially when it's speech, and in most other kinds of acoustic transmissions. So when dispel darkness is played, it will have an effect within a given radius of the emission source, and within that radius you'll have essentially a sphere or canopy of some pretty solid protection, and also the capacity to strongly disrupt whatever is hostile within there. And so, given a situation where if Fantastic Daily was ever, say, cornered, or in a situation where he was met with sudden confrontation, certainly the application of these frequencies at that point would be demonstrably helpful. If he had some kind of a small player and he could turn it on at strong magnitude, high volume. So if Fantastic Daily is in the woods and he needs quick defense and enough latitude for escape, then having a portable, say, audio player that's capable of producing very loud sound, high magnitude, that will give him like a bubble of protection. That should be really effective and work well. But that's not what I'm really going to be focusing on this video insofar as the frequencies go. What I'm going to describe is how to directionally weaponize these frequencies so that they can be broadcast in a very thin, narrow beam. And what I mean by that is it's, you know, if the situation is such that a sudden confrontation occurs, that's when you can just play them broadly as a normal sound. But there's a couple of things I think would really serve Fantastic Daily, who I'll just refer to as FD from this point forward, would serve him really well, and that would be if he's in a place or a space where he suspects a concealed intruder, this idea would allow him to flush the intruder in a stealthy fashion without revealing his position. At least it would occlude his position to a great degree, and also it wouldn't reveal, you know, to the surrounding space that he was essentially armed with these frequencies. Because, you know, if you just play these frequencies on a standard player in the middle of the night in the forest, they're going to be heard all around, like 360 degrees in all directions. And the other thing is that the way that my tracks work, the way that they've been designed, is that when they're just played normally, they can travel a very far distance, perhaps much farther than normal sounds, even when at a low volume. And so with this application, that's not what we want. We want to be able to conceal the activated frequencies until the moment it intersects the target. So I'm going to just kind of explain more about how that would work tactically and strategically. I'll get to that in a minute. The technology itself, I don't have any association with these folks. This was a subject that was brought up in our Sound of Stars frequencies group a number of years ago, because a lot of members and myself, you know, we're intrigued with finding different ways of deploying these tracks and using them. But the name of the technology is called Audio Spotlight, and it's created by a company called Holosonics. And so the idea is that you basically have, you know, for those of you that are familiar with lasers, you know, it's an acronym, light amplification by simulation, you know, of emitted radiation. So really what a laser beam is it's just, it's highly coherent light. It's a very dense, you know, light beam. And what Holosonics has done with the Audio Spotlight is they've created a technology whereby you can take an output audio signal and highly cohere it in such a fashion where you've literally got a narrow beam carrying the audio signal over a decent distance. And the only way that it can be heard is when the beam lands on the target. So, you know, and these can be made into portable devices. So you know, you could literally have, you know, if you had a flatbed truck, you know, or possibly you could arrange it even if you were on the move, possibly in the woods with some gear. You would have a kind of panel emitter array which would broadcast this focused, concentrated, narrow beam in any direction that you wanted to. And, you know, you could literally be standing a foot or two away. Like if somebody was standing next to me and the beam was being emitted a couple of feet away, the likelihood of hearing much of anything at all would be remote. So you could have these frequencies amped up to full magnitude, full volume, and you could sweep, you know, any perimeter that you wanted to, and you're not going to give yourself away, as opposed to if you just played the frequencies full tilt from a normal, you know, stereo speaker. Everything, you know, within a given radius is going to know, you know, that there's a loud sound traveling through the woods at night, and they'll have, you know, probably a better idea of triangulating what your position is. But when you're transmitting those frequencies on a narrow beam, I'm going to just do a diagram here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so just doing a quick diagram of how this would kind of work tactically. So it's using a black marker here. So let's say that this is the road that FD travels down on, and let's say that this is a truck or a vehicle, and at the end of the vehicle, I've just drawn, you know, some little objects. This could represent the audio spotlight, and you know, certainly you could use a single audio spotlight to do like a sweep of a broad area. However, the addition of multiple audio spotlights gives some pretty interesting capabilities too. But let's say that it's late at night, and you know, maybe he suspects in a large perimeter area that there could be intruders. So the thin beam could be angled out, you know, to any given area, and it would be a very narrow intersection. So that's not the beam itself. What I'm suggesting is that one single black line is a beam, and then it's moving, it's being swept through the forest. And likewise, you could have another beam sort of angled, you know, to the far end of that perimeter. So rotating these panels slowly, you know, through the woods, you know, as it intersects every area, you can bet that if there's, you know, something hiding behind a tree, and it doesn't matter if it's a human being, you know, the effect of the audio spotlight late at night, you know, if it was just a bum roaming through the woods and it lands on them, it's going to startle the heck out of him, and he'll detect, you know, my guess is, you know, he'll definitely detect motion. But the really cool thing about this is that you can broadcast this in such a way, like, you know, we could have a different arrangement of this. So, for instance, just give me 1 sec here. You know, we could also arrange it, you know, we could arrange it in such a way that he could actually direct, not only flush them from a hiding spot, but he could actually direct their motion towards, you know, any given location that he would want to. And let me just explain how that would work. Let's say that, you know, we might have, say, like a panel or an audio spotlight situated here. We might have another one here. And we have this great big expanse, and we suspect something's in there, but we don't know where it is. So what we can do is we can put a slow sweep rotation on that beam and box, you know, the culprit in. So if he's hiding in a given region, as this beam tightens in its radius, and it keeps, you know, narrowing down, this you know, whatever this is, it's going to move to a space-free zone. As the beam, and this will depend on the speed of the sweep, but if the sweep is set to a slow increment, you can bet that as it begins to intersect something, it's not going to want to go into the beam. It's going to want to go away from the beam. So now what you have is you have a narrowing, you know, canopy, where, you know, it's kind of like in the I Ching hexagram, where they talk about, you know, how the emperor goes on the hunts and employs beaters, and so they march through the woods. They're beating a drum in a straight line, and they chase all the game so that, you know, the emperor is at the end waiting to shoot it. Same kind of idea, but what you have here is an interference zone where the free space becomes smaller and smaller. So you could literally draw whatever that is, a person or a creature,
into range. And then if you had loud audio speakers, if these things were agitated and violent, you could just blast the snot out of them with the speakers. And certainly, if you wanted to capture, for say, video footage and get the phenomena localized, you could direct it wherever you wanted to. You could have your cameras set up here, and as they try to escape that sort of drawing tight noose, they're going into the free space zone where the beams are not converging. You're going to be up close and personal, and get all kinds of footage that you want. Now, there's one other variation of this that I wanted to mention. Okay, so in a previous video, we talked about the possibility of isolating one of these entities, and one of the ways of doing that, using an approach with audio spotlight, would be to create an interference bottle. And what I mean by that is, we could situate these panels in different ways. You could have them all in one small area and then just kind of triangulate the beams, or you could arrange them within a certain area. But imagine if we have an audio spotlight here, we have an audio spotlight here, and we have one there, and we've got a beam that's sweeping the forest, and we're creating like a perimeter. We could actually use the intersection of beams, to move the target not just in a specific area, but once we actually have it actually say close up. So for instance, this beam gets tighter, and it's moved here. So we have a line of force there, a line of force here, and then we triangulate the force so that we now have a close proximity to the target, but it's got no place to go. What we've done is we've directed its motion through the area, and then what we've done is we've created an energetic beam sort of force field arrangement where now we've got it close and it's stuck. It has nowhere to go. And the likelihood, if these things are along the lines of what I think they are, it's not going to want to cross those beams. It's going to be probably pretty pissed off that it's contained within the beams, but it's not likely, I think it's highly improbable that it would risk crossing them. So now what you've got is you've got it captured, you've got it isolated. So that's basically the idea. I'm going to be putting just some reference links to Audio Spotlight in the comments section below of this video. I've lost track but I looked at it a few years ago, and they weren't inexpensive devices, and I think that when they first came out, they were being used mainly for commercial reasons. So commercial merchandising and retail concerns wanted to use these devices to broadcast audio adverts to individual consumers. But for our purpose, it could be a real boon for protection, for defense, for containment, for pretty much puppeting and directing the motion of these creatures to whatever space we feel like. And certainly, if FD is going to be out in the woods at night, if there was a way to make this portable. I had some friends years ago that were into gaming, and they like to play the old game of Doom. And I've never been a dedicated gamer, but I played it a few times. Favorite weapon of everyone in that game was something called the BFG. It was the big fucking gun, pardon my language. But the BFG was something that, if you knew someone else had it, you better get out of the room, because when it powered up,
and it launched, it just obliterated everything in its path. So, so if we could strap, you know, a BFG to FD's butt when he's going through the woods, I think we'd feel a lot, you know, we'd feel a lot more better about his safety, and I think he would, you know, he might feel a lot more secure just in knowing that he's packing some, you know, some serious, you know, some serious items in his quiver. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. That's something to consider, you know, potentially for long term. I think that it might equip. There's some saying in one of the old Batman movies, and I can't remember who it was that said it. It might have been, maybe it was the Joker who was pissed off at Batman because every time the Joker thought he had Batman, you know, Batman would pull out some kind of crazy new item, you know, if it was like the bat boomerangs or whatever. And I think he said, you know, where does he get those toys? So if we can equip Fantastic Daily and suit him up like Batman, and you know, get him out there, then when he's having to deal with or confront whatever is, you know, whatever is out there isn't going to expect a human being, you know, to be equipped with this kind of stuff. And I think it might make for some real interesting video footage. You know, and certainly it would create, it would normalize and equalize things, because if these things can see in the dark, and we can't, and they count on us being vulnerable and weak in certain areas, and they're taking advantage of that, this turns the table. You know, this equalizes and normalizes things in a huge way. No place to run, no place to hide, and they'd have a heck of a time trying to, you know, overpower someone that was equipped with this technology, and they would have no idea. They wouldn't be expecting this. So, you know, the element of surprise would be on Fantastic Daily's side. So I hope that helps, and again, this is just a suggestion for a possible long-term project that you might want to incorporate. You know, it would take time, you know, to, you know, I don't think, it's not difficult to use. There's, you know, Holosonics, the company that makes this gadget, they have different versions of it. There's an OEM developer's kit, so, you know, modifying a version of this device specifically for this task wouldn't be tough. But you know, again, the expense would have to be covered. Last time I checked into this, I think it was, I think the lowest price was somewhere around maybe $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000s per unit. That may have come down by now. I haven't checked into it. But yeah, it's just, you know, something to think about. My hope is that Fantastic Daily's project expands with luck. You know, if it's something that's of interest to him and to you folks, you know, maybe he can take this on the road. Maybe the opportunity will arise where he may be in a situation to, you know, to do this, you know, with more time on his hands, and maybe he'll end up traveling. You know, if there's other hot spots, he's been putting that map together. You know, maybe he may have the opportunity at some point to go on a safari and maybe go to, you know, some of these areas where there's a lot of frequency of sightings. And wouldn't that be great if he could arrive, you know, in those areas like Iron Man, you know, just decked to the nines. Anyway, hope this is of interest. Again, long-term project. Keep up the good work, Fantastic Daily and Freya, and I wish you the best of luck. Take care.
Well, now that I know a little bit about sound, I wonder what else we can do with it. I hear there's some people doing some really neat stuff with sound here. Oh, this is the place. Do you hear that? Do you hear music? Where's that coming from? Oh! Hi!
Hey, Paula.
Hey, do that again. Is it turning off? Okay, I hear it over here. Now I don't hear it anymore. Now I hear it. Now I don't hear it anymore. How are you doing that? What is that thing? Hey, can we talk? I have some questions for you.
So did I startle you?
Yeah, a little bit. Can you explain what was going on?
Sure. This is called the audio spotlight, and I invented it to create directional beams of sound that you can shine just like beams of light. In lighting, we have flashlights and spotlights, and that creates nice, tight, narrow beams of light.
So what this is basically a flashlight, but instead of light, it's sound.
Exactly right. That's the way to think of it.
But how does it work? Our ears can hear anything that has a frequency of 20,000 hertz down to 20 hertz. Anything else we can't hear. Below that, it's called infrasound. Above that, it's called ultrasound. And that's the kind of sound that the audio spotlight uses because ultrasound actually travels in a tight, narrow beam. So now you can hear it, now you can't, now you can't. But wait a minute, didn't I say we can't hear ultrasound? Well, Joe combines the audio signal he wants us to hear with ultrasound. Then the ultrasound vibrations in the air change shape as they travel, and this change creates audible sound in its wake. And that's what we hear, sound coming from the air in front of the audio spotlight. That is so amazing.
So do you want to see how it works?
Absolutely.
We've installed 2 audio spotlight systems up in the ceiling. So now you're in between both of them. What do you hear?
Nothing. Are they on?
Now take a step to your left.
Oh, they are on. I hear music.
Now step over here to your right.
It's different music.
Right.
This is so cool. Do you do this all day? How do you get any work done?
Most days, yeah.
Sound! No sound. I would love to see what we could do with this in the real world. Do you think we could take it out for a little spin?
Well, I don't see why not.
There's a bunch of students here. Perfect test subjects. Hey you, black sweatshirt. What are you working on? The answer is fish. Hey you, with the dark hair and glasses. Want to sing the alphabet with me? Hey, that's a nice gray shirt you're wearing there. Are you studying hard? Are you hearing voices? Are those stripes on your arms for racing? Can you sound like a car?
Vroom. Vroom, vroom. Vroom,
What
vroom.
about a big car, a fast car with big engine?
That sounds like vroom.
Why are your friends laughing at you?
Am I hallucinating or is there someone actually there? Show yourself, please.
Hey guys! I was the voice. I'm the voice. Well, thank you so much for taking part in my experiment. Wasn't that fun? Isn't it cool how only a couple of you can hear me at a time?
Yeah.
Doesn't it make you wonder what else we can't hear?